Welcome to the Top 10s. Most anticipated games of 2023. Starting from number 10, Dead Space Remake. Dead Space is a 2023 survival horror game developed by Motive Studio and published by Electronic Arts. A remake of the 2008 game of the same name developed by EA Redwood Shores, it was released on January 27, 2023, for PlayStation 5, Windows, and Xbox Series XS. It is the first release in the Dead Space series since 2013's Dead Space 3. Like the original game, it is set on a mining spaceship overrun by deadly monsters called necromorphs following the discovery of an artifact called the Marker, and players controls engineer Isaac Clarke as he navigates the spaceship and fights the necromorphs while struggling with growing psychosis. EA announced a remake of Dead Space in July 2021 to be developed by EA's Motive Studios. Among lead staff include senior producer Philippe Ducharme, creative director Roman Campos Oriola, and art director Mike Yazigian, all whom had worked on titles within the Dead Space series. The remake was built in the Frostbite engine, rebuilding all the systems from scratch for it and introducing new features such as volumetric and dynamic lighting. The game also takes advantage of the newer console's solid-state drive systems to create a seamless experience between levels without any loading screens. Initially, EA had no plans to introduce microtransactions into the game, a similar move following the release of Star Wars Jedi: Fallen Order. The game received generally favorable reviews from critics, with general praise for its graphics, sound design, and improvements to the original. Number 9, Atlas Fallen. Atlas Fallen is an upcoming action role-playing video game developed by Deck 13 Interactive and published by Focus Entertainment. The game is set to be released for Windows, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series X and Series S in August 2023. Atlas Fallen is a third-person action role-playing video game. At the beginning of the game, players can create and customize their own player avatar. The player is equipped with an ancient gauntlet that allows them to manipulate sand. With the gauntlet, players can shape the sand around them into weapons. Players can use 3 different weapons, though they can only carry 2 at any given time. Unlike Deck 13's previous games, Atlas Fallen is a more traditional action game. Players are required to dodge, counter, and block incoming attacks, as well as quickly switching between land and air combat. As players attack enemies, they will gain momentum. At certain momentum threshold, the weapon the player is currently wielding will transform, and they can unleash a special skill or ability that deals devastating damage to their opponents. The game features multiple open regions for players to explore, and players can meet different non-playable characters and complete various side quests and activities. Movement is an essential part of the game's exploration and transversal. With the gauntlet, players can glide through the game's desert landscape. The gauntlet also allows players to perform feats such as air dashing. Players can also raise buried objects, allowing players to discover hidden areas and open up new paths. As the player progresses in the game, they will find shards and catalyst pieces, which further upgrade the gauntlet's combat capabilities. The game also includes a 2-player cooperative multiplayer mode. Number 8, Final Fantasy XVI. Final Fantasy XVI is a 2023 action role-playing game developed and published by Square Enix. The 16th main installment in the Final Fantasy series, it was released for the PlayStation 5 as a timed exclusive. The game features segmented open environments and an action-based combat system involving melee and magic-based attacks. There are recurring series features including chocobos and summoned monsters called icons, which are both fought as bosses and used through channeling their power in combat. Final Fantasy XVI is set in the fictional world of Valisthea, a world divided between 6 nations who hold power through access to magical crystals and dominance, humans who act as hosts for each nation's icon. Tensions between the nations escalate as a magical drought dubbed the Blight begins consuming the land. Clive Rosfield, guardian to his younger brother Joshua, witnesses his kingdom destroyed and becomes involved in the growing conflict between Valisthea's nations and the secret power behind the war tied to the dark icon Ifrit. Final Fantasy XVI is an action role-playing game in which players take control of protagonist Clive Rosfield and a rotating party of AI-controlled companions through segmented open areas across the continents of Valisthea. Recurring Final Fantasy elements, such as the Galliform Chocobo and monster types, appear in the game. Following a story-driven prologue section, Clive is able to travel to different parts of Valisthea. The world is split between enclosed dungeon environments, town environments, and wider open fields, all selected from a map via a fast travel menu. Travel within open zones is done either on foot or via Chocobo. Clive's home base is a hideout, acting as a hub to talk to non-playable characters, NPCs, track Clive's relationships with different characters, interact with different shops such as potion sellers and blacksmiths to make and upgrade equipment, and accept side quests ranging from character requests to monster hunts. Information on locations, characters, and terminology is stored in a database dubbed Active Time Lore, accessible to players at any time. Number 7. Lies of P. Lies of P is an upcoming Souls-like video game developed by Round 8 Studio and published by NeoWiz Games. The game will be released on September 19, 2023 for PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Windows, Xbox One, and Xbox Series XS. The game is loosely based on the 1883 Italian novel The Adventures of Pinocchio by Carlo Collodi. Inspired by Carlo Collodi's novel, The Adventures of Pinocchio, Lies of P tells the story of a humanoid puppet, Pinocchio, who wakes up in an abandoned train station in the city of Krat, engulfed in chaos and madness. Pinocchio must find his creator, the master Geppetto, and overcome the calamity that has befallen the city, trying to become a man. Lies of P is played from a third-person perspective. The player controls the humanoid Pinocchio and travels on foot through the city of Krat, exploring the environment and fighting various biomechanical enemies. Pinocchio uses an arsenal of weapons such as swords and axes against his enemies, and can dodge and block their blows. Pinocchio has a mechanical arm that can be equipped with gadgets, such as a grappling hook to lure enemies or a flamethrower. The weapon and crafting system offers 30 different weapon types, with 100 combinations. The game features a lying system, where the decisions the player makes during certain passages affect the course of events, leading to 3 different endings. The gameplay of Lies of P has been called a Souls-like, and compared to that of Dark Souls, Bloodborne, and Sekiro. Number 6. Hogwarts Legacy. Hogwarts Legacy is a 2023 action role-playing game developed by Avalanche Software and published by Warner Bros. Games under its Portkey Games label. The game, part of the Wizarding World franchise, takes place in the late 1800s, a century prior to the events chronicled in the Harry Potter novels. The player controls a student enrolled in the Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry who learns to wield an array of magical abilities and objects. With the assistance of fellow students and professors, the protagonist embarks on a journey to unearth an ancient secret concealed within the wizarding world. Hogwarts Legacy is an action role-playing game played in a third-person perspective. It is set in Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry and its surrounding areas, influenced by the Wizarding World franchise. During character creation, the player can choose their character's appearance, gender, voice, and body type. They may also choose between one of the 4 Hogwarts houses. As players progress through the game, their player character learns to cast spells, brew potions, and master combat abilities, eventually developing their own special combat style. Through in-game challenges, the player character can earn experience points to gain levels, which allows the player to access and upgrade different spells, talents, and abilities. These challenges come in the form of combat, quests, and exploration. Player characters are also able to establish friendships with interactable non-player characters, NPCs. As these relationships grow, schoolmates become companions who can accompany players on their journey, expand their abilities, and offer unique companion quests as players learn their stories. Each of the 4 Hogwarts houses, Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, and Slytherin, also offers a unique common room. These rooms are only accessible for the player's current house chosen by the Sorting Hat. Accompanied by the choice of house, the player receives different exclusive quests. While house points for the 4 Hogwarts houses play a part in the game's plot, they are not influenced by player actions. Number 5, Horizon Call of the Mountain. Horizon Call of the Mountain is an action-adventure video game developed by Guerrilla Games and Firesprite and published by Sony Interactive Entertainment for the PlayStation 5. Part of the Horizon series, the game was released on February 22, 2023, as a launch title for the PlayStation VR 2 virtual reality headset. The game's story follows Rias, a former Shadow Carja rebel who is sentenced to atone for his crimes by joining an expedition sent to investigate a new threat to the Sundom. During his journey, Rias will meet numerous new and returning characters, including franchise protagonist Aloy. The game is played from a first-person perspective. Described as a master at climbing and archery, Rias, the game's protagonist, is equipped with a hunter bow, which can be used to defeat various robotic creatures in the game. While the game is largely linear, there are multiple paths for players to explore and approach their objectives. As the player progresses in the game, they will unlock additional tools and gears, allowing players to be more efficient in both exploration and combat. In addition to the main story, the game features a scenic mode named Machine Safari, a guided tour of the game's landscape. Number 4, Mortal Kombat 1. Mortal Kombat 1 is an upcoming fighting game developed by NetherRealm Studios and published by Warner Bros. Games. It will be the 12th main installment in the Mortal Kombat series and a sequel to Mortal Kombat 11, 2019. Mortal Kombat 1 will be the series' second reboot, following Mortal Kombat 2011. The game is set to be released for Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 5, Windows, and Xbox Series XS on September 19, 2023. Mortal Kombat 1 has been confirmed to feature a story mode, online multiplayer with rollback netcode, and offline gameplay. The game will introduce a feature called Cameo Fighters, which will provide assistance to the player during fights. These characters will be separate from the main roster and chosen before each fight. Additionally, the air combat combo system, which was featured in both Mortal Kombat Armageddon and the action spin-off Shaolin Monks returns and is being refined for this game. As of the game's announcement date, it has been revealed to feature reimagined versions of Liu Kang, Scorpion, Sub-Zero, Raiden, Johnny Cage, Kung Lao, Kitana, Mileena, Smoke, Rain, and Kenshi. Shang Tsung will be offered as a pre-order incentive. 6 additional characters and 5 cameo fighters are planned for post-launch release via the Combat Pack downloadable content. Cameo fighters are a unique roster of partner characters to assist during matches, creating expanded gameplay possibilities for players. These characters are chosen separately from the main roster of fighters. Some characters can serve as both cameo fighters and base roster fighters. Guest characters can even serve as cameo fighters. Number 3, Marvel's Spider-Man 2. Marvel's Spider-Man 2 is an upcoming action-adventure game developed by Insomniac Games and published by Sony Interactive Entertainment. Based on the Marvel Comics character Spider-Man, it features a narrative inspired by the long-running comic book mythology, while also deriving from various adaptations in other media. It is the third entry in the Marvel's Spider-Man series, acting as a sequel to Marvel's Spider-Man 2018 and a follow-up to Marvel's Spider-Man. Miles Morales 2020, with Peter Parker and Miles Morales working together as a duo and coming into conflict with new foes such as Kraven the Hunter, the Lizard, and the symbiote Venom, which bonds itself to Peter. Marvel's Spider-Man 2 is scheduled to release for the PlayStation 5 on October 20th, 2023. Marvel's Spider-Man 2 will be an action-adventure single-player video game played in a third-person perspective. As with the first game and Miles Morales, Parker and Morales are the two main characters, becoming individually playable in accordance with the story as they traverse an open-world New York City and fight enemies. Players can acquire new abilities and collect various Spider-Man suits. Peter and Miles are able to be freely swapped between at any point during free roam in the game's open world, but will have dedicated missions both in the main story and as part of side content that specifically take advantage of their individual traits. Building on the combat system of the previous titles, both Spider-Men are able to parry physical attacks as certain enemy types are impervious to dodging. During traversal, both Peter and Miles' new suits come equipped with web wings, which when deployed allow them to glide across the city, with their speed and distance covered increasing when they take advantage of areas such as wind tunnels. Each Spider-Man's gadget wheel has also been upgraded with additional equipable mods for their web shooters, such as being able to cast a web line across pillars for additional footing during stealth sequences suspended above enemies, and the web grabber, allowing multiple enemies to be pulled into an isolated spot for stealth takedowns, which can now be performed on two enemies at once. In addition to Peter Parker's standard gameplay, he will also be playable when bonded to the Venom symbiote, granting him tendrils that he uses during combat and unique web-based abilities. Both Spider-Men have individual skill trees with additional unlockable abilities for both of them to peruse once they accumulate enough skill points in accordance with their experience level, as well as a third skill tree dedicated to shared abilities between the two of them. Number 2, Atomic Heart. Atomic Heart is a 2023 single-player first-person shooter developed by Mundfish and published by Focus Entertainment and 4Divinity. The game was released for the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Windows, Xbox One, and Xbox Series XS on February 21, 2023. Atomic Heart is set in an alternate history version of the Soviet Union during the 1950s. Initially depicted as a retro-futuristic utopia, the game follows the quick collapse of the Soviet Union into a dystopia after a robot uprising begins. Atomic Heart received generally positive reviews upon release. It was the subject of controversy over its reported Russian links following the country's ongoing invasion of Ukraine. Atomic Heart is a first-person shooter video game with role-playing elements. The combat consists of shooting and slashing with improvised weapons. A wide variety of enemies are featured, which may be mechanical, biomechanical, biological, and some of which are airborne. A crafting system allows the player to piece weapons together from metal parts that can be detached from robots or taken from household appliances. Weapons can be upgraded via a mechanic called cassettes. Ammo in the game is scarce, and there is a stealth option. Quick-time events are featured in the game. The player wears a special glove, the polymer glove, which grants powers such as telekinesis, freezing, and electricity to defeat foes. Its powers can be combined with both melee and ranged weapons. Ammunition can be upgraded with various elemental effects using canisters. These canisters can be looted and crafted and equipped by the player on both melee and ranged weapons. If the canister depletes, it is discarded from the player's inventory. Number 1. Resident Evil 4. Resident Evil 4 is a survival horror game developed and published by Capcom for the GameCube in 2005. Players control Special Agent Leon S. Kennedy, who is on a mission to rescue the U.S. President's daughter, Ashley Graham, who has been kidnapped by a religious cult in rural Spain. Leon fights hordes of enemies infected by a mind-controlling parasite and reunites with the spy, Ada Wong. In a departure from the fixed camera angles and slower gameplay of previous Resident Evil games, Resident Evil 4 features a dynamic camera system and action-oriented gameplay. Development on Resident Evil 4 began for the PlayStation 2 in 1999. 4 proposed versions were discarded. The first attempt was directed by Hideki Kamiya, but series creator Shinji Mikami felt it strayed too far from the series' roots, so it was spun off as Devil May Cry 2001 at his recommendation. Other versions were scrapped until Mikami took directorial duties for what became the final version. The game was announced as part of the Capcom 5, a collaboration between Capcom and Nintendo to create 5 GameCube exclusives to boost hardware sales and demonstrate third-party support. The player controls the protagonist, Leon S. Kennedy, from a third-person perspective. Departing significantly from the series' previous games, the gameplay focuses on action and shootouts with fewer survival horror elements. The camera is placed behind Leon and zooms in for an over-the-shoulder view when aiming a weapon, or a first-person view when aiming with a sniper rifle. There is no crosshair for firearms. Instead, every firearm has a laser sight. Unlike previous games where players can only shoot straight, up, or down, players have more options. For example, shots to the feet can cause enemies to stumble, and shots to the arms can make them drop their weapons. Players can also shoot down projectiles like thrown axes or scythes. Thanks for watching. If you guys enjoyed watching the video, please subscribe and like this video. See you guys in the next one.